Hey fangirls and boys, this is Natalie and you're watching Whole Lotta Love, and today's video is a first impressions on the Kathleen Lights x Colourpop So Jaded eyeshadow palette. When I found out about this palette, I was super excited. It is really gorgeous. This is what the palette looks like inside. So it's all really like gem, jewel tone inspired type of deal, gemstones, crystals, what have you. And one thing that I really like about this palette is that there's a lot of different finishes. You have a ton of mattes to work with, but you also have a couple of pressed glitters, and you have a super shock, which I'm gonna swatch now because I didn't get to really play with that too much. I didn't really get to play with that in the look, but that's what that shade Diamond looks like. That's the one super shock. That's super duper pretty. I would love to use that as a topper shade. So in addition to pressed glitters, one super shock, you get several different satin and metallic shades. You also get a couple of these like more matte type of shades with glitter in them. So you kind of run the gamut on all different finishes in this palette, which is really nice. And it's colorful, but it's subdued. So you can create pretty neutral looks and pretty fun, more adventurous looks. There's nothing super bright in this palette, but you can definitely play with color with this palette, and it's pretty cohesive. So you can do, you know, cool tone look, a warm tone look. You can do something that's more blue, something that's more purple, lavender, something that's more, you know, fiery, orangey, red. So there's like, and there's also some really nice greens in this palette. So there's a lot to play with in this palette. I also wanted to compare this palette to the Sephora Pro Pigment palette, and this is the one, the Smoky Jewels. I'm a huge fan of this palette. So we'll kind of do a side by side here because these are both like jewel tone, gem toned, crystal inspired type of palettes. So we'll just do a little bit of a side by side here. So they're not totally similar, but there are a lot of similarities. You do get some shimmery blues, some greens in these palettes, a couple of different like, you know, orangey, reddy tone things in both palettes. So there are some similarities here. So if you feel like you might already have this palette and you don't necessarily want to spring for this one unless you're really into the pressed glitters, or there's something that's really calling to you in this palette that you don't see in this palette, you know, I would say that you could definitely go with this palette. I like this palette a lot too. There isn't as much variation in the finishes, but and the shimmers in here are a little more like subdued. They're like more of like a subdued, like pigmented kind of shimmer, as opposed to something that's really heavily foiled or glittery. There's not really any glitter in this palette, but I really like this palette, and what inspired me to look at them is there's both have a shade called Smoky Quartz, and they're pretty similar actually. I would say the Smoky Quartz shade in this palette is lighter. I think this palette has a slightly lighter vibe than this one. This one's more of like smoky, like it says. Overall, I was definitely very excited to try this palette. I love that it has pressed glitters. I feel like, you know, some people are a little weird about pressed glitters, but I love playing with them. I've never really had a problem with them irritating my eyes or anything like that. So I was really happy to try all the different finishes in this palette. And this palette retails for $39. I got it as soon as it launched on the website, and I think that they made a mistake when they first launched it because I got it for $35, but I noticed shortly after they changed the price back to $39. I believe that this is out of stock currently, but I know that they'll be restocking it several more times. It's just based on previous experience with Colourpop. I got this palette really fast. I think it launched on Friday and I got it on Wednesday, so following Wednesday, so it was less than a week later. So I was just very happy, you know, with the turnaround time and everything. And you know, you'll get to see my thoughts, you'll get to see how everything applies and how I create this look. I kind of went with a more cool toned spotlight cut crease kind of look with some glitter on the inner corner. Also, the palette has 0.03 ounces of product per pan, which is a decent amount of product per pan. They're not huge pans, but I mean, compared to the Sephora Pro, but that's also $68 as opposed to the $39 So Jaded palette, which has more shades in it. I think this one has 0.04, 0.05 ounces per pan. I know the fun size palette by Sugarpill that came out, like the mini one, had like 0.02, so that's like kind of like one of the smaller pan sizes I would see. 0.03 is pretty average to slightly small. I think it's pretty typical for Colourpop eyeshadow palettes to have that amount of product, so I wouldn't worry about it being kind of going too fast. It's pretty standard amount of product. So I think for that price and for the amount you're getting in different shades, I think it's definitely worthwhile. And I think the quality of Colourpop shadows is a little bit better than Morphe shadows. So I think it's nice that they're doing like the big palettes, because usually Morphe does those kinds of palettes, but they're their quality is a little bit hit or miss, whereas Colourpop is a little more consistent. So I'm excited to see Colourpop go in this direction. I'm excited to see them do more big palettes like this, you know, maybe that aren't necessarily collabs, but maybe, you know, kind of go with like really cool, interesting, you know, color stories, maybe a little more monochromatic, but just a little, you know, different themed out color stories that aren't necessarily just collabs with people who, you know, have like an idea as to what the different shades that they want in particular. So anyway, if you are interested in seeing how these eyeshadows apply and my first impression and my thoughts on how everything applied and my thoughts on how I got this look, if you're interested in seeing that, then keep on watching. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I've already done my brows and I have primed my lids using the Too Faced Born This Way concealer in the shade Snow. So I'm going to dip into my Kathleen Lights and Colourpop So Jaded palette. And I think the first color I'm going to go into is the shade Rose Quartz over here, which is just like a light, cool toned, beigey brown transition shade. And I'm going to use my OCC Cosmetics smaller tapered blending brush. There's a lot of kick up in the pan. Just wanted to note that. So I'm just going to put this above my crease. So this is how that shade Rose Quartz looks blended above my crease. It did apply a little bit sheerly where I definitely had to build up the color, and it wasn't the smoothest eyeshadow. I didn't have too much trouble blending, but there was a little bit of sticking where I had to really make sure I blended if I didn't want it to like stick to certain spots or look patchy. But overall, so far so good. And I do see a little bit of that pink coming through, so I kind of see where the name Rose Quartz comes in. At first I thought it was more of like a beigey brown transition, but it does have a hint of that kind of rosy pinkness to it as well, which is good because I think that'll go with the look I'm planning in mind. So the next shade I'm going to go into is the shade Ametrine over here. So this is kind of like a lavender with like some golden coppery sparkle in it. I think it's mostly going to be a matte look because it's a matte base. And I'm going to stick this in my actual crease using the same OCC smaller tapered blending brush, and there is about the same amount of kick up, maybe a little bit less, but just there's definitely kick up with that shade as well. So this is the shade Ametrine blended all throughout my crease and on the outer edge of my eye. I think that looks pretty good. Similar performance to Rose Quartz. These are like more kind of dusty, a little bit drier eyeshadows, but since they are dusty, they are picking up well on the brush, so I'm definitely getting the pigmentation, but I definitely had to work the blend. They can easily start sticking, and I do feel like they're a little bit, not patchy, but just like a little bit concentrated in certain areas where it's like a little bit harder to blend it out, but overall it looks pretty good. I don't think that the look looks smooth and blended to me. I think that we're looking pretty good so far, and I do notice definitely the glitter specks. I am noticing them, which is kind of surprising and kind of cool because usually these shades with glitter in them with the matte, they just kind of perform matte on the eye, but I definitely see the glitter throughout. You might not love that if you're trying to use it the way I'm using it. I don't really care too much. It's not bothering me, but like typically, you know, you want a matte to be a pure matte if you're blending it out, but little specks of glitter don't really bother me. It's not super intense. It would look really cool maybe if you kind of did a cut crease with this and just packed it over, then the glitter would really show through if it was like packed on the lid, especially over some kind of tacky base. So those are my thoughts so far. What I'm gonna do next is I am going to create a spotlight cut crease, and I'm gonna use the Urban Decay Naked Skin Concealer in the shade Fair Neutral and my Colourpop flat concealer brush to do this. So I'm gonna kind of create the cut crease more in like the center of the lid. So you see that length, I'm gonna start to narrow it down as I go down. Kind of like a V shape. So this is what I'm working with so far. I think it looks okay. I haven't done this kind of look in a while, so I think this will look pretty cool once I kind of get it together. And it's also a little bit just like bigger in general than maybe I expected or necessarily wanted it to be, but I think it's gonna look cool once everything's done. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go into the shade Smoky Quartz, which is just like a taupey metallic shimmery kind of shade right over here. And I'm going to take my Morphe Jeffree Star, this is the JS10 brush, and I'm just going to pack this where I cut the crease. So this shade is looking pretty so far. It definitely has a little bit of pop to it, although it has a little bit of subtlety to it as well, which is cute. There is definitely kick up with this one as well, and I feel like the pan is kind of like moving around a little bit in the palette, which is a little bit annoying, but it's not quite as powdery as the matte shades I've worked with so far. And it's picking up nicely and depositing nicely on top of the concealer. And I feel like it would definitely work well wet or dry as well with no base underneath, with no tacky base. So my base down here I prefer to the side because I feel like this one I kept it like a lot bigger and this one I had that nice, you know, taper. But I'm thinking once I kind of blend in the deeper colors, I can kind of mask that a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the shade Sapphire here, which is just a navy blue matte shade, and I'm gonna take my same OCC Cosmetics smaller tapered blending brush. And I'm just going to hit this on each side of the cut crease. The shade is nice and pigmented. And there is about the same amount of kick up as the other mattes with this shade. I'm gonna go back into the shade Ametrine, which is that mauve-y purple with the glitter in it, and just kind of bring that back into the look and continue to blend. I'm having to do a lot of blending to get that blue integrated into the look. Just going back into Smoky Quartz just to kind of keep that a little bit blended in the look, even though it is a cut crease. I don't want there to be too much of a stark edge between any of the colors. So this is what I'm working with. I'm not completely sure how I'm feeling about it. I kind of need to finish the full look and like, you know, kind of take a good look, you know, like take a picture and kind of see how everything goes. This look is a little bit iffy for me so far, but it's coming together, I think. There's a lot of blue in the look. I'm trying to keep the purple in the look, but it's a little bit tricky. I'm just gonna kind of keep moving forward. What I'm gonna do off camera is I'm gonna do liner, lashes, and just clean up with under eye concealer. So let me do that and I will be back to finish the rest of the eyes. So I am back, lashes, liner, concealer is on. I also used this Urban Decay 24/7 Glide On Eye Pencil in the shade LSD on my waterline. It's just like a sparkly blue kind of shade, really super pretty. So I'm pretty happy with how it's looking so far. I think this is a fun, different kind of look for me. What I want to do is I want to dip into one of the pressed glitters in this palette. I think it is really cool that they have pressed glitters in this palette. I know some people are a little iffy on those. I've never really had a problem, even though I understand that the particles can get in your eyes, like as long as you're not really rubbing for the most part, I think it's usually going to be fine. But I'm gonna go into the shade Opal right here, which looks absolutely stunning. I'm gonna take my pinky and I'm just going to pat this into my inner corner. I also used the Kiss Naked Drama lashes in the style Tool, and I think that they're really super pretty. I really like these lashes. There's the This is the glitter on my inner corner, that shade Opal. I think that that looks super gorgeous. I really love the Colourpop pressed glitters. I think that they apply very easily and they're really intense. Pressed glitters, I never really want to say are opaque because they're not. It's just glitter kind of packed together, but as opaque as you can get with something like that. I feel like the Colourpop ones are. And I'm just putting a little bit of concealer. I was kind of like got the glitter a little lower than I wanted to, so I'm just gonna conceal over that. And I'm using the Urban Decay Naked Skin Concealer. I am gonna line my under eye, and I'm gonna use that using the Junkie Urban Decay 24/7 Glide On Eye Pencil and a MAC 219 pencil brush to blend it out. Actually, to blend out that liner that I just placed, I'm going to go into the shade Emerald from the So Jaded palette, and again using the MAC 219. This one also has a lot of kick up. I am going to blend out the liner. So I lost control a little bit of that green shadow. I don't know if it's because it had so much kick up, but it's, as you can see, it's like all the way down my under eye, which I'm not loving. So I'm just gonna take some of my Urban Decay Naked Skin Concealer and kind of line right under that to kind of thin that out a little bit. And I'm just gonna take the same brush that I've been using. This is the Colourpop flat concealer brush, and I'm just going to conceal this. Spot conceal my under eye where I over applied the green eyeshadow. I'm just going in with my beauty blender to really blend that out. I just wanted to use the concealer brush to get right in there without kind of moving the concealer where I didn't want it to be. I just need to get the last bit blended out nicely. So this lower lash line is finally starting to come together. I'm gonna go back in with the MAC 219. I'm not putting any additional product for the time being. I'm just gonna blend that little excess in a little bit. I'm gonna take my OCC Cosmetics blending brush and I'm just gonna buff that edge just a little tiny bit. So that is the lower lash line. I'm gonna finish the eyes with some IT Cosmetics and Drybar Lash Blowout Concealer on the lower lash line. And this lash is definitely popping up, so I do see that. So this is the eyes done. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how they came out. It was pretty hard to get there. This was a challenging look for me, but especially with that lower lash line fiasco. But overall, I think that this is a fun color combination. I'm digging it. So I'm gonna do the rest of my face off camera and I'm gonna come back to finish up with lips. So the rest of my face is done. I'm having a little bit of a reaction under this eye. It's kind of like, there's like little, I don't know if it's like a little rash or like irritation bubbles are kind of coming up under my eye. It might be because I used a lot of concealer. I also used the L'Oreal Infallible 24-Hour Fresh Wear Foundation. I've used this before. I hadn't really found any issue with it before, but I haven't used this in a while and I noticed it has a pretty strong fragrance, so it could be that that's causing it, or just that I kind of use a lot of concealer to try to correct a few different things under my eye. But that's a little bit annoying, but oh well, just if you see some kind of bumpiness there, that's what's going on. I'm gonna finish with lips. I have the Dose of Colors lip liner, and this is in the shade Casual. I'm gonna finish the lips with the NYX Candy Slick Glowy Lip Color, and this is in the shade S'more Please. I'm just going to set my face with the Morphe Continuous Setting Mist. So this is the completed look. overall, I'm really happy with how the look turned out. It was definitely a challenging look for me to pull together, but I think I got it there. I'm glad I went outside the box a little bit, outside of what I've been doing usually, and kind of going back to like my spotlight cut crease look. I definitely think it paid off. And I know I had a little bit of a challenge with the lower lash line and blending out the blue on the upper, but I think just, you know, kind of seeing it through really, you know, got me there, and I'm happy with how everything turned out. I think that everything is looking really pretty and I'm really happy with it. So in terms of the So Jaded palette, again, it's a first impression, so I can't really speak necessarily to, you know, the problems that I had with the look having to do with the eyeshadows or just with user error. It's a little hard to tell upon first impression. I think I would know if I kind of had like more difficulty with every look I created with this as opposed to other palettes where I'm having less difficulty. So I'm just gonna have to play with it 1 or 2 more times to see if, you know, I have the same problems. The shadows in this palette have a lot of kick up, so they're very dusty. I didn't really get any fall out of my face though, which is really, really nice, especially when I was working really hard with that blue, come to think of it. So that was really, really good. So the performance of these seemed pretty decent. I think it was just, you know, kind of me doing a technique I haven't done in a while and just, you know, playing with the colors and different things like that. It was just, you know, a little bit tricky to get there, but overall I think this color scheme is absolutely gorgeous, and I'm definitely very happy with how this look came out. And I'm usually a pretty big fan of Colourpop eyeshadow, so I think, you know, trying a few different things with this palette, I think I will be happy with the palette, and I don't see myself really struggling to come up with creative or even more subdued combinations of shades with this palette. Anyway, that completes this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and have a good one. Bye guys!